Everyone cheered inside the banquet hall while I ate cold pizza alone in my car. Then he knocked. The window had fogged up from the inside. Between bites, I tried to wipe away my tears with a greasy napkin. Across the parking lot, golden lights from the hall shimmered against the glass, casting shadows of people laughing, hugging, celebrating. It was my graduation night, but nobody had remembered me. There was no invitation, not even a last-minute text. Not even from my own mother. She claimed a migraine and left early without asking if I needed a ride. I had changed in the high school bathroom into a borrowed dress that didn't quite fit and walked to the pizza place down the block, spending the last $12 I had. The plan was simple: eat fast, go home, and pretend it didn't hurt. But then, 2 soft knocks tapped against the passenger window and my whole body went still. It was Mr. Henley, the vice principal. He stood there with his hands tucked into the pockets of his gray suit jacket, his expression somewhere between concern, ... and guilt. In that moment, I just knew he was holding on to something. Something I hadn't been told. Something that might explain why, on the most important night of my life, I was the only one not invited to celebrate it. It wasn't the first time I'd been left out, but this one hit different. Graduation was supposed to be the finale, the moment I finally got to matter. I mean, I had survived high school. I kept my grades up, worked part-time at the Dollar Tree, helped mom with bills, and still managed to smile in class, even when my stomach was growling. But when the banquet seating chart went up last week and I didn't see my name, something in me sunk deep. I told myself it had to be a mistake. Maybe I'd been added late. Maybe I just hadn't checked the right section. I even stayed after school to ask Mrs. Creighton, the office secretary, if she could double-check the list. She gave me that tight-lipped smile the kind adults give when they're trying to be polite but already know the answer. "If you didn't receive an invitation, sweetie," she said, "you probably weren't on the list." That was it. No explanation, no apology, just a smile that made me feel like I was 12 again, asking to sit at the grown-ups table. The thing is, I didn't expect balloons or a big party. I wasn't asking for a crown, I just wanted a chair. A plate. A moment to feel like I belonged. I guess I thought anyone might have noticed I was missing. Back home, I found the fridge nearly empty except for a half carton of eggs and an old bottle of grape jelly. Mom was already in bed, lights off, doors shut. No. Congrats. No, how did it go? Not even a sorry. I grabbed my tote bag, stuffed my dress inside, and headed out again. I told myself I just needed air. But the truth was, I couldn't stand to be in that house another second, so there I was. Graduation cap tossed in the backseat, crust from the pizza box digging into my thigh, watching from a distance while everyone else clinked glasses under. Crystal chandeliers. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what I'd done wrong. Just as I leaned back in the driver's seat, trying to swallow the bitterness, a thought struck me. What if I wasn't forgotten by accident, ... but on purpose? The dress was 3 years out of style and 2 sizes too small, but it was the best I could get. Missy, the girl who used to live next door before her dad got transferred to Tulsa, had left a box of old clothes in our garage before they moved. Her mom said I could go through it if I wanted. So I did. I found the navy dress wrapped in tissue. Paper still smelling faintly of a vanilla body spray I used to borrow from her when we were still friends. I tried it on in the mirror above the sink in the school restroom. The hem was uneven and the zipper only closed if I sucked in my stomach, but for a second I almost felt pretty. Then I caught the flickering fluorescent light above me, the yellowish tint on my skin, the dark circles under my eyes. The kind of tired that no concealer can fix. I blinked twice, forced a smile, and told my reflection, this is as good as it gets. After I walked to the pizza place on Main and waited 15 minutes for a Friday night special one. Topping 2 cans of soda, I headed to the school parking lot, far enough from the entrance so no one would see me. I spread the receipt over the seat to keep from staining the dress, folded the box open like a sad little dinner tray, and ate. The crust was chewy, the cheese congealed by the third slice. But it was warm for a minute, and it was mine. Every once in a while, headlights swept across my windshield as parents pulled in to drop off flowers or snap photos in front of the banquet entrance. Some of them glanced toward my car, most didn't. I kept my head down, chewing, slowly trying to ignore the sting building in my chest. But as I reached for my second can of soda, something caught my eye. Through the gap between two parked cars, I saw him, Mr. Henley, standing alone, arms crossed, not looking toward the party, but toward the lot. Toward me. And in that moment, I knew he wasn't just out there for a smoke or to make a phone call. He was waiting for me. He didn't knock right away. He just stood there, maybe 15 feet from my car, watching me through the drizzle beginning to miss the windshield. I froze, a half-eaten crust still in my hand. Part of me thought about pretending not to see. Him just starting the engine, backing out, disappearing. But something about the way he stood there, not moving, not rushing, made me stay. Finally, he took a few slow steps forward and tapped the glass twice, softly, like he wasn't sure if he should. I rolled down the window halfway, wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. "Mr. Henley?" I said, half embarrassed, half confused. He looked tired. More tired than any teacher I'd seen that night. His tie was loose, jacket wrinkled at the elbows, eyes rimmed red like he'd been staring too long at something he couldn't fix. "Can I sit for a minute?" he asked, motioning toward the passenger side. I nodded. He opened the door gently and sat down, glancing at the open pizza box between us. "Is this dinner?" he asked, not joking. "Just asking." "Yeah," I muttered. "Wasn't invited inside?" He didn't react the way I expected, no shock, no empty apology. Just a slow, steady breath. "I know," he said quietly. "That's why I came out here." I stared at him. "You knew I wasn't on the list?" I did. His voice was firm but heavy, and I'd been carrying that around all week. He paused like he was choosing each word carefully, then said, "There is something I need to tell you, but not here." "Not like this." He looked out at the banquet hall, lights flickering through the tinted glass. "Would you take a walk with me?" The question hung between us like a dare. I had no idea what he meant. But somehow I knew this wasn't about dinner. This was about something much bigger, Doc. The air outside was damp and cool, and my heels clicked awkwardly on the pavement as I followed Mr. Henley across the parking lot. We didn't say much at first. He led me past the row of teacher cars, across the soccer field, and into the little park behind the gym that nobody really used. After dark, there was a wooden bench near the tree line, the kind parents usually sat on during junior varsity games. He sat down first, and I followed, pizza box still in hand. "I didn't mean to scare you," he said after a minute. "I wasn't even sure you'd still be here." I shrugged. "Didn't have anywhere else to go." He nodded slowly, resting, his elbows on his knees. "I've watched you all year, Lila. You keep your head down. You do your work. You never ask for anything. Most teachers didn't notice you." But I did. Something about the way he said it made my stomach twist, not in a creepy way, but in a way that felt too vulnerable, too exposed. I wasn't used to adults noticing or caring. "You ever think about what's next?" he asked. "Next?" I scoffed, then looked down at the box in my lap. "Next is probably working full-time at the Dollar Tree and pretending I'm not dying inside." He didn't laugh. He didn't even smile. He just looked at me like he already knew. "Lila, do you remember that essay you wrote in Mrs. Carter's class? The one about your uncle and the car accident?" My heart dropped. "I read it," he continued. "Mrs. Carter brought it to me. Said she thought it was one of the best pieces of writing she'd seen in years. Not just from a student, period." I didn't know what to say. That essay had been a fluke, a night of insomnia and rage and honesty, the first usually buried deep. "That essay made me wonder," he said, turning to face me. "Who are you outside of school? Outside of this place that forgot to make room for you?" And for the first time that night, I realized I didn't know the answer. I sat quiet for a long time after he asked me that, who I was outside of school. The truth. I wasn't sure I'd ever had the space to figure that out. Between shifts, at work, helping my mom pay overdue utility bills, and making sure I passed AP English with at least a B, there wasn't time for identity crises. I was what I had to be. Day by day, Mr. Henley leaned back on the bench, his arms crossed now, watching the mist settle on the grass. That is say, he said again, it stayed with me, and I don't say that lightly. I looked at him, unsure what he was leading to. Compliments from teachers usually came right before a request to help clean up the classroom or write a speech. No one would hear. You wrote like someone who's seen too much, he said. Someone who's already lived a dozen lives and still manages to show up every day. I wasn't sure if that was supposed to be a compliment or a diagnosis. It's just how things are, I replied. He shook his head. No, that's how you were forced to survive. Then he pulled something from the inside pocket of his jacket, a manila envelope, worn at the corners. After I read your piece, I started asking questions, quietly, about your grades, your attendance, your recommendations. You had enough credits to qualify for the Whitford scholarship. You ever hear of it? I blinked. No, it's for students who've overcome significant adversity. Covers full tuition, housing, meals. No essays, no interviews, just paperwork. You had everything they needed. My chest tightened. So, what happened? He looked away. We sent the offer to your home. Certified mail. That was 3 months ago. The silence between us grew heavier than the night air. He didn't need to say anything else. Someone had seen that letter, and someone had made sure I never did. I drove home in silence that night, my hands tight on the steering wheel, headlights cutting through the fog like they were searching for an explanation. My stomach churned with questions, none of them small. I replayed Mr. Henley's voice again. And again, certified mail, 3 months ago. It wasn't a mistake, it was delivered. Someone had opened it. And I knew exactly who when I walked through the front door. The house was still. The only light came from the kitchen where Mom sat at the table in her robe, sipping tea like it was any other night. Her phone glowed face up beside her, the screen full of unread emails and grocery store coupons. You're home late, she said without looking up. I stood in the doorway, dress still crumpled, arms crossed. Did a letter ever come for me? From Whitford? She didn't answer right away. Just sipped her tea like it might buy her time. It would have been a few months ago, I continued. Scholarship letter, certified mail, big envelope. She finally looked up. You get all kinds of junk mail. It wasn't junk, my voice cracked. It was a full ride. A chance to leave this place, you knew. Her lips pressed into a thin line. I opened it, she admitted. You wouldn't have gone anyway. It was so casual. Like we were talking about a missed bus. What? I blinked. Why would you hide that? Because you're not ready, she snapped. You think just because you got good grades and wrote one sad story, you belong in some big fancy school? You barely keep this house together now. What would I do without you? The words hit harder than I expected. I always knew she leaned on me too much, but I never imagined she'd clip my wings just to keep me close. She set her mug down with a clink. I did what was best for both of us, but it wasn't best, it was control. And in that moment, I realized this had never been about what I could or couldn't do. It was about what she needed me not to. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, watching headlights skim across the walls whenever a car passed outside. My chest ached not from grief exactly, but from clarity. There's a sharp kind of pain that comes when things finally make sense. And nothing in my life had ever made this much sense or hurt this badly by morning. I was digging through every drawer in the house, the hall closet, the boxes under Mom's bed. I didn't even care if she saw me. I needed proof. I needed the envelope. I found it in a manila folder. tucked beneath old bills and expired coupons, wedged between documents she probably thought I'd never touch. There it was, my name printed clean across the top, the Whitford Foundation seal, embossed in gold. I held the letter in my hands, reading it twice just to make sure it was real. Tuition, housing, stipend, mentorship, everything. A whole life just waiting to begin. A life she buried in the dark. When she came downstairs and saw me holding it, she didn't flinch. "You went through my things?" "You went through mine first," I shot back. This letter had my name on it. Her eyes narrowed. "You think you're better than me now? You think you're gonna go off and be some big shot writer and forget who paid for your peanut butter sandwiches all these years?" I stared at her. This wasn't about sandwiches. It never was. She saw my silence as weakness. "You don't know the world, Lila. You're not ready for it." But she was wrong. I knew it all too well. I'd seen what it did to people who stopped dreaming, who passed down fear like an heirloom. And in that moment, I finally understood this. It wasn't just about keeping me here. It was about making sure I never saw anything else. Never wanted anything else. She didn't just hide the letter. She tried to erase the part of me that believed I deserved more. The letter stayed on my nightstand for a full week. I kept reading it as if the words might vanish if I didn't check. Every time I passed by, I'd run my fingers over the seal. It still didn't feel real, not because I doubted I'd earned it, but because I'd spent so long being told I shouldn't want it. Mom barely spoke to me after our argument. She moved around the house like I was a stranger, quiet, cold, untouched. At first it hurt, but after a few days, the silence began to feel like permission. Like I'd finally been cut loose. I called the number at the bottom of the letter, left a voicemail. 2 days later, I got a call back from a woman named Carol in the admissions office. "You were awarded the scholarship months ago," she said. Her voice warm, surprised. "We just never heard back." I explained what had happened, well, some of it. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "If you still want it, the offer's still on the table, but you'd need to decide soon." That night, I sat in my car outside the high school again, the same parking space where I'd eaten cold pizza in a dress too tight, wondering if I mattered. Everything was the same, and yet nothing was. I thought about the party I never got, the applause I never heard, the seat that was never set for me. But I also thought about the voice inside me that never went quiet, the part of me that kept showing up, kept writing, kept waiting for someone to see me, even if it had to be me. In the end dots, so I pulled out my phone, opened my email and typed, "Dear Miss Carol, I accept." And just like that, the door I'd been told didn't exist opened. If you've made it this far, it means this story touched you in some way. So don't leave without subscribing. It really helps the channel and keeps me motivated to share more stories like this. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? And which part of this story moved you the most?